Hey all, Ron Coddington here from Military Images Magazine. Hope you're doing well on this Friday evening. Some of you who are photo collectors and dealers are in Gettysburg right now. The April show is getting underway tomorrow. It's open to the public. I'm not setting up a table for the show, but I will be visiting tomorrow to meet some of my friends and catch up and, I don't know, maybe add something to my collection. Who knows? We'll see. I'll also be visiting the Horse Soldier, one of the well-known antique, historical military antique stores located in Gettysburg, and catching up with some friends there as well. So looking forward to that. If you're going to be in Gettysburg tomorrow, I hope to see you. The reason I'm on tonight is I had a moment a little bit earlier today, and I think it's maybe a moment that some of you have had in the past where you're watching something and it reminds you, it brings to mind a soldier, a sailor, someone from the Civil War. Well, that happened to me today. I was listening to Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson's acceptance speech as an Associate Justice on the Supreme Court. And during the speech, she quoted Maya Angelou. And the quote was, "I am the dream and the hope of a slave." And when she said that, when she said of a slave, my mind instantly went to my book, African American Faces of the Civil War, and one specific individual. Now, I can't tell you why my mind just went right to this person. There's no explanation for it. It's just a mystery. And this has happened to me before, where the mention of a word in real time takes me back to someone that I've researched in the past. And in this case, it was a gentleman named Robert Holloway. And I'm going to share his photo with you as soon as I can call it up here. I'm going to share my screen and get this for you so you can take a look. This is Robert Holloway, and his face came right to me, and his story did as well. And I thought, my second thought after I had his face in my mind is, I'm going to tell his story. I'm going to tell his story today. So that's why I'm here tonight. I want to be able to give you a little bit of Robert Holloway's story, because he sort of appeared to me this afternoon. So to be able to tell the story properly, I think the best starting place is 1861. I want to take you to Monday morning, July 22nd of 1861. A name that you know, this man here, Colonel Ambrose Burnside, and his battered Union brigade are stumbling back into the city of Washington through the countryside of Virginia, making their way to the defenses of Washington after an exhausting, footsore, all-night retreat from the battlefield of Bull Run. The Union lost, the debacle, sometimes known as the Great Skedaddle, as the Army was defeated by Confederate forces and made their way back to the defenses of Washington. Colonel Burnside was among the group of folks who had that all-night walk, that all-night run, walk, skedaddle to Washington. One person who was not in that group was Robert Holloway. Robert Holloway was the servant of Ambrose Burnside. The two men had a long history together, in fact. Holloway and Burnside met in 1850, way out west, far from Virginia. They met in New Mexico, right around the time it was a territory and going into statehood, way out there in the territory. And at the time, Burnside was a young officer, and Holloway, how he got there is a mystery. There is practically nothing known about his early life. There's nothing really known about him before 1850, other than he hailed from Virginia. So, was he free? Was he a slave? How did he come to make the journey from Virginia to Mexico? These are details that I've never been able to uncover. Nonetheless, it is established that the two met in 1850, and they stayed together. Holloway became employed by Burnside as a servant, and the young officer and the man from Virginia remained together from New Mexico to other posts in the West, back to the East, where Burnside made a home in Rhode Island. There, he came up with his Burnside carbine, which many of you Civil War students of weapons know well. After the Burnside carbine didn't work out and the company folded, he became treasurer of a railroad, and life was going along. And Holloway was there to assist the colonel in whatever way he wanted. When the war began, Burnside forms a regiment, the 1st Rhode Island. They go to Washington, D.C., and at Bull Run, Burnside is a brigade commander. In the action, Burnside and his men come back, as I mentioned up front, and Holloway is not with him. At some point along the action, Holloway falls into Confederate hands. So while Burnside is in Washington, and he is commended for his work during the battle, Holloway is in Richmond, where he is detailed to work as a cook in one of the prison camps, one of the Union prison camps in the city. So months pass. Burnside is outfitting a group to go on an expedition to North Carolina, while Holloway is in Richmond cooking for Union prisoners of war. Burnside makes some efforts to try to find Holloway and is unable to secure his release. Meanwhile, Burnside finally gets underway with his expedition in January of 1862, goes down to the coast of North Carolina, has success in securing the coast, big parts of the coast for the Union. And one of the cities that is captured is Roanoke. And Roanoke has a garrison of Confederates. And when that Confederate garrison surrenders, there are 4 senior Southern officers who have become separated from their slaves. Burnside more or less makes a deal, and he says, I will get your slaves back if you contact the government in Richmond, have them find Robert Holloway, and release him to me. So Confederates, the Confederate officers, they agree. They petition the government in Richmond. Richmond finds Holloway, and they send him back to Burnside. There is a reunion in March of 1862 where Burnside and Holloway are reunited after, 7, 8, almost 9 months of being separated. So at that point, the two are practically inseparable, and they remain together through the rest of the war. Holloway is there during Burnside's rise to being something of a celebrity military general after North Carolina. Holloway is there after Burnside's fall from grace following the Battle of Fredericksburg. Holloway is there following the Battle of the Crater in 1864, where Burnside's subordinates basically botch their mission. And Holloway remains with Burnside after the war is over. As Burnside goes on to become a governor of Rhode Island, he becomes a U.S. senator, and Holloway is there the entire time. Of these two men, Holloway is the first one to pass away. He's about age 62 in 1877 when he dies. And he's buried in Bristol, Rhode Island, in Jupiter Cemetery. And his stone marker there is engraved, 30 years, a faithful servant to General Burnside at home and in the field. 4 years later, in 1881, Burnside dies. The two men are no longer with us. They pass from the scene. There's two endnotes to the story that I want to share that I think get a little bit back to Maya Angelou's quotes about the dream and the hope of a slave. In 1882, a year after Burnside dies, his biography is published to some fanfare. It's called The Life and Public Services of Ambrose E. Burnside. It's a thick volume, 448 pages, detailing Burnside's travels to the west, to the east, his battles, his after the war, all of his successes. Tons of information packed with personal details and other information. Robert Holloway, the man who was with him for practically almost 30 years, guess how many times he's mentioned in Burnside's biography? Twice. Two minor mentions of Robert Holloway. Yep. That's one ending for the story. There's an ending that I like better, and that's Decoration Day in 1886, 4 years after the book is published, 5 years after Burnside passes from the scene, and 9 years after Robert Holloway passes. In 1886, in Bristol, Rhode Island, where both men are buried, the Grand Army of the Republic has their commemoration exercises. They have a procession that goes to the town hall in Bristol, which includes, as you can imagine, it's got music, it's got speech making. The veterans are reflecting on their service. There's a final tribute, a recital of the roll of honor of all of those veterans from the Bristol Post who are no longer with the group, but they're still there in memory. That recital of the roll of honor is saying of all the names of those 125 deceased comrades who are no longer with them, who served Rhode Island and served the Union Army, served the United States. The roll includes Ambrose Burnside and Robert Holloway. It's touching to me that both names of both men are included in that recital of the roll of honor. I like to think about that as an appropriate recognition of the services of both men. And so, it's a little story for you. Originally researched from my book, African American Faces of the Civil War. I've told it on some other occasions, but as I mentioned, it came to me this afternoon as I was listening to the acceptance speech of Judge Jackson, and thought I would share it with you tonight. So I appreciate you paying attention. If you like this, if you're on YouTube right now watching, give us a like and subscribe to the channel. If you're following on Facebook, thank you very much. I really appreciate that. also on Twitter. Thanks for watching and for listening. If you're going to be in Gettysburg tomorrow, stop by the show, look it up online, and hopefully we'll see you at one of the tables there. Take care. Have a great night.